While we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, welcome to the LEO First Podcast. We are coming to you live, well, more in person in Beaumont, Texas today, and I have a great guest with me. We connected through a mutual connection, and it's so cool when you have someone that's sitting next to you that believes in corrections so much, because as I've learned in my 10 plus years in corrections, that it's a very underserved law enforcement community. And most times corrections is put on the back burner, which keeps them from learning as much. But our guest today, and he's going to tell you something about what he's been through as far as corrections as well as his current business. He's going to really highlight how all of us should be working together. We should all take this opportunity to not just grow inmates, but also grow our staff, because our employees are so important to developing not just the inmates, but the prison environment itself. So today with me, I have Percy Pitzer. He has 40 years of correctional experience. That's ranging from working from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, as well as having his own company called Creative Corrections, which lets you know that over the last 22 years that he's been in that business, that he didn't just give up on corrections. He could have retired and, as we say, rode into the sunset, but he took opportunities and this chance to continue to elevate. And some of the things he's going to talk about, some of the things that we talked about prior to starting this podcast, it's amazing, because I personally don't hear a lot of private companies that aren't working for corrections specifically doing what he's doing. And I'm so appreciative, because I don't get as many guests on here that have a correctional background as I would like to. So when I get the chance to do it, this is an amazing opportunity. So for all those that are watching, if you haven't had a chance, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notifications button, because when this podcast comes live and future ones like this, you want to make sure you could be one of the first people to be able to see it. And it gives you the chance to understand how important it is to improve this industry, improve each other, and just be part of this whole system. I'm not the only podcast out there, but I am the only one that has Michael Laidler as the host. So, I mean, that's all I can say. People's like, what makes your podcast different? I said, well, it has me on it. I don't know. I mean, I think we're all a little different, but needs to say, making sure you are on the channel, so when anything comes out, you make sure you're able to see it. So I gave a quick introduction of you, Percy, and as most people know, my podcast is completely unscripted outside of the main 3 questions I ask, and outside of that, we're going to take it on the direction you want to go. So Percy, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I think about corrections in general. I started off in corrections as a correctional officer. Worked 25 years. I've been a warden in 3 bureau facilities and 2 private companies. Mm-hmm. So, and I've been a warden in 5 institutions. And, corrections is my life. I mean, it's given me everything I've got. Mm-hmm. And, I actually grew up in poverty. I grew up on welfare. My father died when I was 7 years old. Left 3 boys still at home. Mm-hmm. I survived simply because I had a supportive mother and a supportive community. I still believe today there's a lot of supportive mothers out there, but I question how supportive the communities are. And so I went through the system. Probably the most difficult time was MCC New York.
Which isn't even activated right now, but I believe it's going to come back online at some point.
Oh, sure it will.
Yeah.
But I went there as a young lieutenant, and hell, I had been in the military for 5.5 years. I was shift supervisor, and I thought I knew everything. And my first thing was to go around and identify everything that was wrong. And, you know, that's a mistake. Not to identify what's wrong, but the way I did it. Because it looked like I was just out to get everybody. And I quickly learned, I don't know how quickly, but I eventually learned is go out and find things that are right and fix the things that are wrong. And partnership with the staff, because then you have credibility, and then you got help, and give them some say-so. One of the things I think maybe we need to look at in corrections today is the most important resource in a prison is your line staff.
Oof, I agree.
I mean,
Yes.
If you don't have their support, I mean, I was a warden. I go home at night. I take weekends off. And for some reason, that damn institution keeps running.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always wondered, how could it run without me? But it does, because of the line staff. And if you don't develop a relationship with the line staff, then you're not going to be successful. You might survive, but success will be a question, because they are the most important resource you have. So you got to look at leadership. You got to look at the line staff. Your most important resource is your line staff. And you can't forget about your product, which is inmates. I mean, if it wasn't for inmates, you wouldn't be there.
That is very true. You learned that from day one.
So, I mean, it's a pretty simple process, but sometimes we get away from it. I know after I retired, I started Creative Corrections, and starting all over again here. I thought I was pretty smart, but I didn't know a damn thing.
Private sector is a little bit different. Running a business is a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, there's knowledge you got to gain. You got to figure out the politics of it, because everything is politics.
Absolutely.
And at one point, I got in debt. I mean, I put everything on the line to start this. My entire retirement, my 25 years in the Bureau, I put it on the line. And at one time, I visited a bankruptcy attorney because I got in debt. And I thought, after that meeting with him, I walked out, and I thought, well, he's crazy as hell. I mean, I'm not going to do that. Because not only have I ruined my retirement, I ruined my reputation, and integrity is the only thing that you can voluntarily give away.
True.
And so I figured out a way. I said, I have to generate revenue to survive. So I thought, well, there's a lot of Hispanic in prison, and books are hard to get. So I started importing books, Spanish books from Mexico. And I was known as, they was making fun of me, of course, as a retired warden, Spanish book salesman. Later on, when they wanted a job, I'd say, how many books did you buy from me?
Remember when we talked about this whole book thing?
But, and you know, I got the first contract with the Office of Detention Trustee on doing audits. And I didn't have the money to pay the people. So I identified 4 people who I thought were the best in the business. And I said, look, I got this job, but I ain't got no money. Will you do the job and accept payment when I get paid? And they agreed, and they've been with me for 20 years. So, I mean, it's starting a business is not easy. But we based the business on integrity. I mean, very good. You know, for instance, I get a lot of opportunities for expert witnesses. And I've never taken one. Because how can I testify against or for a correctional facility and then go out and audit them. I mean, where's the credibility there?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So, I mean, it's appearance of impropriety, and you just can't do that. And we've done probably a little over 2,000 audits since we've started. We've worked in actually 37 different countries worldwide.
And that's all through Creative Corrections?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, I mean, in the international business, I mean, we do corrections, rule of law, police advisors, training, and we've been very successful in that area. And and in 2012, since we had been successful, and my wife Sue and I are always about giving something back. So in 2012, we started Pitzer Family Education Foundation.
I remember we talking about that.
And our purpose is to, there's 2.7 million kids at the last count with parents incarcerated. And that is 1 out of 28 kids has a parent incarcerated.
That's a lot.
And they, according to what I've identified, are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated than the average kid. And so we give scholarships, and I haven't given a lot because I haven't got a lot of support from actually prisons or the community. My wife and I, in 12 years, have contributed personally out of our own funds a little over $1.5 million.
I believe it.
To make it happen. But we also, with the foundation, have graduated. People come out of prison. First of all, our society has to make some adjustments, because sometimes we use prisons as a tool to solve our social issues in the community. And what they believe in general, well, if we put this person in prison, then we got rid of our problem.
Yeah, because the person's not around anymore.
Yeah, and what they don't realize is they haven't got rid of their problem, because that same person is coming back to that same community that they got incarcerated from.
Correct.
And now you don't want to hire him because he's an ex-offender. You don't want to rent to him because he's an ex-offender. Then you have a revolving door back to prison. So with the scholarships, we've let me get to another point. With the scholarships, I think we've assisted 208 kids into college.
That's a lot.
With the parole and probationers, we've graduated 210 people from a certified construction program and helped them find jobs. It's cheaper to educate than it is to incarcerate. And we don't.
That's a great way to look at it, Percy. That is because we always talk about money, right? Yeah. We're always talking about money, but we don't, like, as a government, as a whole government, whether it's federal, state, municipal. Sometimes it's almost like leadership training. You want to train a leader and you want to build them up before they make a bad decision. Because once they make a bad decision, then you're spending...
It's over.
Yeah, you're spending, let's say, $1 million on a lawsuit because this leader did X, Y, and Z. Same thing, I think, when you relate education and incarceration, like, hey, let's educate these children, let's educate these adults, so we don't have to incarcerate them, because that's going to be a higher cost versus the education.
In the community, it's just not a... for example, I had a businessman come in here one time. And he says, I got this gentleman. He was in prison. He'd been out for 3 years, and he still can't get anybody to rent to him. And so I called somebody in the city, and I said, what do I do with this? And he said, well, talk to the housing authority. So I called the housing authority, and I'll be damned if they didn't tell me they didn't rent to ex-offenders. So the point to all this is there has to be solutions rather than excuses. And that's the same way we operate our company. Now we are the only company probably in the world that's internationally accredited to do what we do.
You did talk about that. I know we talked about a number. We don't have to talk about the number on the air unless you want to, but how long of a process is that?
It took, 4 or 5 months and a lot of money because there's a lot of steps and a lot of people you got to use to get it done. And they actually go out on audits with you. And it's quite the process. And we are accredited and we can certify institutions. But I look at it a little different. There's a lot of prisons in America that are accredited, but why are we still having the problems? To me, if I certify a prison, first of all, with a shortage of staff and the overpopulated prisons, it's difficult to provide certification.
Yeah, because we know corners are unfortunately being cut.
We prefer to do an assessment of the prison and work with them through their corrective action plans and getting it to the position that we believe they should be in and they believe they should be in. About a year ago, I actually sold 49% of the company to a retired bureau warden, to a gentleman by the name of Steve Spalding.
I've heard the name.
He's a retired warden, and he's also a rear admiral from the U.S. Public Health Service. And he has been a tremendous assistance, especially in the medical field.
Well, especially nowadays, too, yeah.
But, and that's another thing. We do in-custody death investigations. We did over 100 of them.
And that's worldwide or usually in North America?
In just North America.
Okay.
But, and those are very complicated. I mean, we don't determine a cause of death, but we review policies, procedures. We take a medical person out. We take a security person out because they both interact. I mean, was he in segregation? Was people making their rounds?
Correct. A lot of questions.
Was he in the unit, and how long did it take to find? Just all kinds of questions. Was medical following protocol? What was his medical history? Was he making sick call? Was he getting the just all kinds of things involved. But it's better that we identify that stuff, and we share our reports to nobody. In 22 years, I've never shared a report to anybody.
Wow.
Except the customer.
Well, of course.
If somebody calls and says for a lawsuit that we need your report, we just tell them it's not our report. It belongs to the customer. If you want to subpoena it from the customer. They got it. And if they don't want to give it to you, then that's up to them. But, it's a process. We got a lot of issues in corrections today. And it really started back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, when we decided to get tough on crime. And what we should have probably looked at is getting smart on crime. Because getting the tough on crime puts us in the position we're in today. And that is the overpopulation. Now, it's my opinion, and you know what they say about opinions, that if the leadership has a good relationship with the line staff, I don't think recruiting should be an issue because your line staff is your most important asset. But I don't necessarily see it there. And I think that's what we got to get back to. Now, we're very capable. I mean, I've got some of the best people in corrections. I mean, I've got retired assistant directors, regional directors,
So
wardens.
people that have been in multiple levels of leadership.
Yeah, that we could very easily provide mentorship to some of these facilities out there, because I think that's what's needed. You know, it's kind of like when I was that young lieutenant in New York, thinking I knew everything and thinking I was so important. And in reality, I wasn't nothing. I mean, I can't succeed without that line staff. I can survive, but I can't be successful.
Correct.
And I'm not sure that we're seeing that today. You know, the Bureau of Prisons, I mean, I still respect and I still honor the time that I spent in the Bureau of Prisons. Because again, had it not been for correction, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
That's true. You learned a lot too.
And I made a lot of mistakes too.
How many moves did you make throughout your career?
10.
10? Okay. And that's, you know, it's when I talk to like people outside of corrections, and sometimes people even outside of the federal side of corrections, they don't understand to become a warden, you're moving throughout the country. Like, let's say you work for TDCJ, which is the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. If you're a warden, you're just in the state of Texas. You might do a few moves to get to warden, but in the federal prisons, like, you're moving a lot. So that's a big impact on you and your family.
Oh, I worked in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Texas, Michigan. I don't even remember where all I worked.
Yeah, but it's a lot of 10 places is a lot. I mean, and I want viewers to understand the strain that puts on a person in general.
And the family.
And the family. And you and Sue and the other family members went through that for 25 years.
Yeah. And there is nothing even today, and it's not always about money, it's about doing what's right. Even today, I would do anything I could possibly do to assist the Bureau of Prisons, because they give me everything I've got.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel I owe it to them. And the people that I have, you know, in 22 years, I don't think I've gotten rid of 5 people.
That is some good retention.
Yeah, I mean, when people come to work with us, they stay with us because they're experts, they're professional, and we pay them. You know, sometimes people tell us, potential customers, well, your price is too high. I said, well, go where you can get it cheaper. Because one thing we will not sell is our integrity for money. We want to improve corrections. And like I said, you know, we've done good financially in the business, and I'm not going to suggest that we haven't. But we also give a lot back.
Yeah. And when it comes to finances, one thing you said early on in the podcast is it's not easy to get to where you were at financially, where you are now. Like, you almost lost it all, but what separated you from other failing businesses was your passion. Like, you weren't doing it for the money, but you have to have money to keep all this beautiful setup in here. But it's because of the passion and the impact and the giving back. That's what drove you to make it to where it's at today.
And we are a debt-free company.
You did mention that, yeah.
We did everything one day at a time. And, you know, and it worked out. You know, what puzzles me is communities, the public. Why are we in a position to believe that prisons is a solution? Why is communities depending on police and prison to solve all our social problems? I mean, just look around. Education. You know, in looking at it, 66% of 4th graders in the United States are reading below grade level.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely not going in the right direction.
34% are reading at or above grade level. I've asked the question, why is that? From educators. One of them told me, well, it's because of COVID. And I tell them, you know, that's BS. That was that way before COVID.
I was going to say, yeah, that didn't just start in 2020.
And the point to that is come up with solutions instead of education. Another educator told me that, well, they can get tutors. Well, some of the people can't afford a loaf of bread. How in the hell are they going to afford a tutor for their kids? Yeah. And there's another situation, and I'm not on anybody's bandwagon, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, whites, Asians. Yeah. Of course, I do kind of like Asians since my wife is Asian.
That would add up, yeah. I mean, and I know Sue's gonna watch this whole thing in its entirety. So Sue, hey, he likes Asians, just so you know.
Yeah. But the black population consists of somewhere between 13 and 14% of the American population, but represent around 40% of America's prison population.
Yeah, and that's see, people want to look at that as like a legit number too. Yeah, you're right.
But if we know that, why the hell aren't we doing something about it?
Why not provide more education to populations that are predominantly black? You're right.
It's also interesting in the scholarships I provided to children who have parents in prison. Mm-hmm. I funded that by inmate donations.
I remember you saying that, yeah.
I had a guy on death row that for the longest time donated $1 a month to the foundation. Doesn't sound like much, but those dollars add up. But the interesting part is he wrote me a letter, and I got it here someplace. He said, if I would took the path you're suggesting, I wouldn't be where I'm at here today.
And that's real talk right there.
And I mean, you can go to our website and see some of the testimonials. It's pfefscholarships.org. Mm-hmm. Or go to our company website and see what we're doing on that. That's creativecorrections.com. But we have one hell of a good team. Mm-hmm. And we have never jeopardized our credibility and our integrity.
That's what makes you so successful.
Because it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. You give up your integrity, you give up everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we've actually turned down business because it just didn't feel right. Because, I mean, we can certify prisons, but what is certification? What does it tell you? It tells you that they're operating at a high level.
Correct.
And the certification is nothing more than us giving them a piece of paper certifying that. Mm-hmm. Well, the fact is, are they operating at a high level with the overpopulation?
And understaffing.
And staff shortage. Mm-hmm. I mean, they don't go hand in hand. And we're not going to issue a document unless they're performing at that level. Now, we'll work with them day and night to get them to that level. But for us to go out and say, yep, we did your audit, now pay us, now here's your certificate. No, that's not going to happen. Yeah. We have to have facilities that we certify operating at that level. And I think, we've never had a customer that we couldn't go back to. And that's a good feeling.
That is good. Yeah, that is a good feeling.
They might not like what we say.
But it's realistic.
Because, I mean, hell, I thought I ran the best prison in the country, and everybody else does too. But, mm-hmm. It's you got to worry about staff, and you got to worry about inmates. Mm-hmm. And again, we come up with this tough on crime. And we got to really look at that because that's really damaging the system. The community has to be more involved in education and programs and drug addiction and mental health to keep them from going to prison. Correct. Now, the prisons do a very good job on reentry. Mm-hmm. But then the question you have to ask, no matter how good they do, if they're not accepted back in the community,
then you push them out somewhere where they don't want to be. Well, not where communities
where they don't want them.
Yeah. Like you said, you talked earlier about that felon that couldn't get an apartment, no matter where he went or a place to live. So now you're like, well, can't get a job. What's gonna happen? You have all these reentry skills, but there's no opportunity actually on the streets in society.
Yeah, and it's another thing that we provide. I don't provide it, but I work with an insurance company out of South Carolina where we can get these guys health insurance until they get on their feet.
Oh, wow. That's important, yeah.
And you know, it's huge. Every little thing you can do to create success. Because I have had a lot of opportunities, but it's a matter of whether I or anybody else takes advantage of the opportunities that they get. Because, you know, you can have opportunities also comes with stress, and it's easy to get discouraged because you got to put a lot out there to take advantage of them. You know, in common sense. Now, I'm a pretty conservative person, but I consider myself conservative with common sense. I mean, it's you know, it's what it's all about, leadership. I mean, if you don't have, if you're providing leadership and it's all about you, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, you're not following the actual definition of leadership. Because you're right, it's about the people that
you know,
follow
I consider leadership as the ability to get things done through others because they want to do it, not because you tell them to do it. And I think that's an important aspect of leadership. I mean, if you tell them to do it, they're going to do it. But are they going to do any more?
Yeah. Or when you're not around.
Are they going to have the respect for you as a leader? And that's what it's all about. And, you know, and there's a lot of good people in corrections. But the overpopulation, I mean, we can't put no vacancy signs out on the prison because the community keeps sending them.
Correct.
I mean, what are you going to do? No vacancy, you can't come in because we're full?
We're at our max or something like that.
Yeah, so, I mean, at some point, corrections has to develop, society has to develop, and they have to work together. It has to be a partnership. You know, prisons can play an important role in educating the community. You know, getting all those people out there in the community into the prisons and see. You know, prisons have plumbers, carpenters, they have everything that a community has.
And needs.
But does the communities know that?
Probably not. So on that note, when we're thinking about that combination, I know you mentioned earlier about society, prisons, everybody working together, everybody be on the same page. If someone was looking to find you, like I said, I know you just mentioned it a few minutes ago, where are some of the best places people can find you right now?
On our website, like I said, our company is creativecorrections.com. Pitzer Family Education Foundation is pfefscholarships.org. And you know what's interesting? If I could get the correctional organizations to get involved with me in allowing the inmates to donate to the foundation, I am convinced that we could educate every one of those kids out there that has a parent in prison.
And that number can go much higher than 208.
Oh, God.
Easily.
I mean, we are doing nothing compared to what we're capable
Correct.
of doing, providing the resources come in. And what's wrong with the inmates contributing to their own family? I had one organization tell me, because I'm trying to get them, put them on a commissary list. And if the inmates want to contribute, they
voluntary.
can. If they don't. And they said, well, and they used the example, what if the Red Cross wants to get on the commissary list? And I said, well, if that organization is supporting the inmate's family, and the inmate's children, then put them on.
Yeah.
Because they have to be part of the solution as well.
Yeah, everybody plays a factor, right? It ain't just one.
You know, I had a situation in one facility I was associate warden in. There was a police officer killed in the line of duty. And they had a request out for donations to buy bulletproof vests for police officers. And I said, well, I'm going to get the inmates to participate. And people thought I was absolutely nuts. Inmates donating money to buy bulletproof vests for police officers. So I approached the inmate population, and initially they gave me some pretty colorful language.
Correct.
And they put us in here, now you want us to buy them bulletproof
Yeah.
vests? And I said, well, not really. I said, it's just an idea. I said, if your family out there gets in trouble, and they called the Aryan Brotherhood or the Black Anchor Disciples to help them out, I said, that's your choice. But if they call the police and they want the police to be safe while they're protecting your family, then you might want to look at it that way. And their response was, well, if you're looking at it that way, we'll participate. And, you know, they donated $3,000 to buy bulletproof vests for police officers.
I believe it because it makes when people need help, most people, I'm sure there's a stat out there that I don't know, they will call law enforcement for help.
Well, of course they will.
Yeah.
But the point to that is you take an inmate population and you make sense, they'll participate in damn near anything you want them to participate in.
They're humans like everybody else.
I mean, they, for the most part, still care about their children. I mean, you can go in a visiting room and almost pick out A, B, C, and D, who's going to be your next future client. You know, I don't care what anybody says. Inmates do care about their kids. Now, they made mistakes.
Yeah. Some of them, they make mistakes for the kids.
Yeah. And you know, I believe that we're locking people up way too long. First of all, we need prisons. There's no question about that. I'm not saying that we should do away with prisons. But we got to use common sense, because I believe that you can lock a person up to a point where it has a reverse effect on what incarceration is supposed to accomplish.
Correct.
And, you know, and we're not fixing. You know, when I was a warden here at USP Beaumont, I had an inmate, 18 years old, was doing a 40-year sentence.
Ooh, that's young.
And about a year ago, this guy walked into my office, here, right here, and said, "You remember me?" And I said, "No." But, you know, he's doing good. And he benefited from being in prison. He did 28 years. But now the question is, would have been just as effective if he'd have done 14 years and get, you know, I think I figured out it probably cost the government $2 million to house that one guy.
For those 28 years.
Yeah.
Oof.
And that's where common sense comes in. We had a pretty good system in the 80s until we decided to get tough on crime, where we had parole and 1/3 of your sentence, you're eligible, and all that. But we did away with that. And we created a situation that we're in today. And we got to get back to common sense. You know, like I said, I grew up on welfare. I know what it's, well, I don't really know what it's like to be poor, because my mother, I never felt I was poor.
Yeah.
But we struggled. I remember one time, my mother said, "The caseworker's coming tomorrow, hide your bicycle." And I'm thinking, well, why do I want to do that? Well, I'm not sure we're supposed to have that. And I knew the caseworker. I mean, I'd seen her in action.
Correct.
And I says, "Ma, she ain't going to say nothing." She said, "I don't think she would either, but I don't want to put her in a position to say something."
Correct.
You know, welfare, whether it's intended or not to be this way, is kind of a pathway to the rest of your life in poverty. Because, you know, women have it very difficult. You know, they get tied up with a man, they have a kid or two, the guy leaves, she's struggling with 2 kids on welfare. She can't work, because if she worked, who's going to take care of her kids? She don't have, I mean, she'd spend her whole paycheck on paying daycare.
Correct.
So, I mean, those are things that we need to look at to keep people out of prison. So what do? They end up, I don't know, selling drugs, stealing something,
Yeah.
A, B, C, D.
It's something that's criminal.
But sometimes our systems put people in a situation. And we have to come up with solutions versus excuses.
I like that. So with that in mind, and you gave a lot of golden nuggets today that I'm sure when people review and watch the video or listen to the podcast through the audio, they're going to listen to a lot. What final words do you have?
Common sense, leadership, being part of the solution and rather than being part of the problem. And I say that because if you're not part of the solution, then you probably shouldn't be in the position you're in.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And you said it a few times now, like I'm going to have to write it down, but come up with solutions, not excuses. I love that. It's a nice way to word the old cliche of come up with solutions, not problems.
And I would like to encourage institutions to allow their inmates to donate to the foundation. Mm-hmm. You know, any organization that donates, we send out quarterly reports telling them how much your organization donated, how much we have left, and what we did with the money. I do not take a salary from the foundation.
Correct.
Actually, my wife and I put over $1 million in it. So it's not, I'm doing it for revenue for me. I'm doing it to help try to solve the problem and using inmates as part of the solution. I mean, why wouldn't you do that?
I don't know. Just hearing what you say, and I love the passion behind it because, like I said, for over 40 years, you never gave up on the industry, and you continue to push forward on it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be such a simple process, but it takes effort, it takes commitment, and it can be done. There's no reason, I don't think, if we have an effective system, to have a prison overpopulated.
But yeah, it takes a lot, but I think from what you said even early on, it's going to be part of the community too. It just can't be only on the prison system.
Well, the prisons are not the solution.
Correct.
I mean, it's the community that wants to send them there. Then they don't want to take them back when they get released from prison. And the length of sentences we're giving people. I mean, at some place, I think you could reduce the prison population today by simply going in and review. It takes a lot of politics to get it done. But reviewing each individual, you got a 10-year sentence, you've already served 5, you've had clear conduct, you've been very active in programming. Why keep him that additional 5 years?
Yeah, so if you're doing everything right.
I mean, like the guy did 28 years from the diamond. Could he have been as successful serving 14 years? I mean, I don't care what he did. He served. I mean, he paid his dues.
Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah, in prison, the people that, and I didn't know this until I started working in corrections, and I've never been on the other side of it, but prison is not easy. And if you can stay on the right path while you're in there, that's a whole nother story.
Well, and you know, I could have very easily been on the other side of that fence from where I come from and how I grew up.
Correct.
But people give me opportunities and showed me how to take advantage of. And I don't think we're doing that today.
I agree. Man, this has been a great podcast. I've learned so much. I mean, being in corrections, I know a lot, but I didn't know how much you all were doing between the company and the foundation.
Yeah, and you know, and Steve Spalding coming into the office. I mean, he's a tremendous asset for medical and management and training, and but most of the people we hire are already experts. Everybody we hire is all retired from a prison system, and they have good credentials, or we don't hire them.
Correct. And that's amazing, because I mean, you're doing the right thing on that one. I mean, you're bringing the right experience and expertise for this cause that you have, because if you didn't, then you'd be trying to teach somebody. I mean, you just have to teach them the business side. You're not teaching them the correctional side and the passion side, because I think that's a big side of it.
Let me give one more example. We had a program in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that we graduated, I think, 24 students, either from high school or from MATC. But you know something? We had students living in vacant cars. We had students living in vacant houses. One of our most promising students got shot in the head over a man. I mean, this is America. Why is that happening?
Correct.
I mean, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
And then COVID come and we had to shut that program down. But that stuff is happening throughout the country. And we're not paying attention.
And that goes back to everything you've said so far about community being involved, and it ain't just a prison. It's not a prison isn't the solution. It's just sometimes an excuse to not worry about it in your society and community, because obviously there's different things that come up with like security and everything else. I mean, some people need to spend some time in prison. We're never saying that. Yeah, but we're never saying that. We're just saying that that should not be the number one answer.
And there's some people that should never get out of prison.
Correct.
And I'm not discouraging incarceration. What I am suggesting that we use a little common sense.
Yeah. Proactivity, like proactive education.
Yeah, I mean, it would work. I don't have any doubt in my mind.
Well, I mean, you've already seen it. Like you said, even the education through the 208 scholarships you were able to give out. I mean, that's preventing. That's called prevention.
But I could do 2,000 if they would just let the inmates let them support their own kids.
Yeah. I agree.
It makes no sense to me.
And some would be more than happy to do that too, because I mean, I've talked to prisoners throughout my last decade of work, and you've talked in 25 years working in the system. They're very into their community. They want to see their community grow. So if they can contribute in any way, especially where they have money on their books or something like that, they will.
If I got a call last week, and I guess some organization, prison, and I won't mention the name, but they call me and says, our inmates are donating 10% to your foundation of what they make in prison. Well, that's huge. And he said, I asked him why they're doing that. He said, because they support our kids in getting them in school.
Yeah, they know. That's reality.
But the point of that is, use them. Let them be part of the solution. Mm-hmm. I mean, what do we got? 1.5 million, 2 million people incarcerated. If 25% donated $1 a month, we could educate every one of their children. And maybe keep them from going to prison. It's such a simple process. But damn, it's hard to get it accomplished.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the fact that you got some on board already means that at least it's moving in a direction that wasn't around before.
Took me 100 years to do it.
But hey, sometimes it takes a long time to move things on.
Yeah, but and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak on it, because I think it has a potential of making a positive, significant difference in the lives of people. I've been given opportunities. You've been given opportunities. Why don't we try to give those opportunities to those out here that are less fortunate?
I agree completely, yeah. And that's part of the podcast, and that's why I'm happy to have you on today, because you're highlighting a topic that people don't usually talk about.
Don't want to talk.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't know. Like I mentioned early on, I don't always get the opportunity to speak to people that have a correctional background. And it's just because there's not as many people willing to talk about some of the issues that are going on, or they don't have solutions to how to fix some of the stuff they have. But you bring both of those.
But you see, if we know those problems exist, why the hell aren't we doing something about it? Why don't we talk about it?
Correct.
Why don't we figure out solutions?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Instead of saying, well, maybe they need to get a tutor. Well, hell, if they can't buy a loaf of bread, how are they going to get a tutor? Well, it's excuse after excuse after excuse. And we have to start taking action, or it's not going to get any better.
No, I agree. And shoot, when I just look at this podcast and putting it together, I'm so excited just because, like I said.
Well, and again, I sincerely appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Because with all the politics going on today, it's hard to get into it's impossible to get into the media because we're a small fry in a big ocean. Mm-hmm. And these podcasts are extremely important.
Yeah, because people watch it. And you know, and I know we talked about after the editing, shooting out to your clientele and putting on your website, it's every voice counts.
Oh, and you and me and John Doe, I mean, we can make it happen because we're individuals and collectively together, we can make things happen.
No, I agree. Because people, enough people do want to help, they just don't know how to help, and then they don't know the voice and they don't know how to do it. So yeah, I'm once again, I know I've said like 3 or 4 times, but I'm excited that you were on today with me. I'm appreciative for you taking your time, and I know you're very passionate about the correctional industry as I'm passionate about all of law enforcement, but the bulk of my law enforcement experience comes from corrections. I'm on year 20 now, and 11 of those years, 12 of those years this year will be in corrections. So it's good to see that people are still trying even when they retire, because, you know, sometimes other people retire and you never see them again.
Well, and it's all about being appreciative of the opportunities that I have received, and where I come from and where I'm at today and how I got there. And everybody out there can have those same opportunities. They just got to be aware of what the opportunities are and how to take advantage of them.
Yeah, well, folks, you have heard it. Percy Pitzer, you have at least 2 websites to check out, his foundation and Creative Corrections. I knew I was thinking about what we said earlier, but the one, I don't want to say it. It was in my brain though, so I don't want to say it. I'm also thank Brian Dobbs. I'm sure you're going to watch this video for connecting us, and you know, somebody that's passionate about corrections as well. And he was very, very passionate about us connecting and you being able to share part of your story and part of what you're doing right now, because he truly believes in what you're doing as well. Because he made sure to call me on a Sunday night and say, hey, Mike, I need you to call Percy and get him on your podcast because he has a message to tell you. So the fact that we were able to do this and connect and share, I think is very important for people to understand. And I think going forward, and I'm very optimistic that people will pick up this podcast and see what you guys are doing, not just domestically, but internationally as well, because this is a program, what you do, that can help everybody.
Yes, and if you want to talk to us, I mean, you can call us at 409-866-9920.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you all day long about how we can work together and how we can create success in our communities.
Right.
And lower the population of prisons.
Yeah, and you guys know the phone works, because at some point earlier in the podcast, the phone was going off, so we know if somebody is calling consistently. So, but once again, thank you, Percy, for your time. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't had a chance, hit that like, subscribe, and notification button. Make sure you can see all the podcasts that are coming out, and we will, which I know we'll probably get you and Brian on at some point in a future podcast, and that'd be very exciting because we know Brian likes to talk as well. I actually had him on my podcast in 2023, and he did an amazing job. And even like I said, his passion for corrections is up here. And a lot of people actually have the passion. It's just about having the voice. So once again, everybody, thank you for your time. Hope you have a great day, and please be safe.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.
Like that, I'm going to be leaving it over. I'm vehicle, I think,